The Washington Wizards started off the 2021-22 regular season as the hottest team in the Eastern Conference, holding on to the 1 seed at one point in time. But unfortunately, they plummeted down into the lottery, falling short of the play-in tournament. So with those highs and lows within one season, and the likely free agency of All-Star Bradley Beal, let's talk about what's next for the Washington Wizards. We'll talk more about the free agency of Bradley Beal later, but Beal's 2021-22 season was far from ideal. He played in under half of the season, put up career low efficiency from three-point range, and had his lowest scoring production since the 2017-2018 season. Even with that in mind, Bradley Beal has a great track record of being an elite scorer, and will no doubt continue to be an elite scorer moving forward. Kyle Kuzma was arguably the MVP of the Wizards season, and inarguably had the best season of his career. He averaged over 20 points per game, seemed to be very happy in Washington, was a great addition via the Russell Westbrook trade, and is likely to be a pretty key part of the Wizards moving forward. Kristaps Porzingis was acquired at the trade deadline with the hope of him finally realizing his all-star potential and living up to his current contract. His three-point shooting struggled immensely throughout a large portion of last season, but he showed some positive flashes in Washington, and the hope will be that he can help lead the Wizards alongside Bradley Beal to some more success. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope proved to be a very valuable piece as well in the return for Russell Westbrook, providing some great wing defense and valuable spacing, while even having a few explosive offensive performances over the course of the season. Daniel Gafford had a fairly productive season. He certainly isn't elite. He isn't quite as tall as maybe you would like at the center position, but he plays with good energy, is a solid rim protector, and should continue to be an important center for the Wizards moving forward, and should continue to be the starting center as far as I'm concerned. Rui Hachimura was out for the majority of the first half of the season, and took a bit to get back into the swing of things, get back into the lineup, and get back to playing well, but he ended up playing some very good basketball towards the back end of the season, shooting by far and away the best of his career from behind the three-point line, and certainly has a future in the NBA in what will likely be off of the Wizards bench next season. Raul Neto continued to be a valuable backup point guard. He's not a high-level backup point guard, but he can give you 15 to 20 minutes a night while giving you some fine playmaking. Corey Kispert had a fine rookie season. Nothing great, but solid. He showed that he can continue to be a solid three-point shooter and floor spacer in the league, assuming he continues to improve in that department, and will replace Davis Bertans' role on this team quite easily. Thomas Bryant has come back from injury to play 29 games, and quite frankly didn't play that well. Not that that's surprising after such a significant injury, but it is something you have to consider. He has shown he can be a fine offensive big who can shoot and space the floor, but he certainly has not looked the same since his injury. Ish Smith was acquired in the Montrezl Harrell trade at the deadline and continues to be a fine backup point guard. He is aging, still quite quick, is a fine passer and can get to the rim, and Thomas Satoransky is also someone that the Wizards will have to make a decision about this summer as a veteran backup guard who has seen some time in Washington in the past. Denny Avdija has yet to take the steps forward on offense many would have hoped for, but his passing and efficiency made some steps forward in year two. The biggest development, however, for Denny was that he has emerged as a very, very good defender. The Wizards have some rotational players to make some decisions about this summer. Players like Denny Avdija and Rui Hachimura will have their team options picked up, but the young player of interest with regards to the Wizards offseason is Thomas Bryant. The Wizards have already committed to Daniel Gafford for the next 4 years, and with Thomas Bryant recently coming off a significant lower body injury, there is no guarantee his future is with the Wizards. As an unrestricted free agent this summer, and as a big who can space the floor, while only being 25 by the start of next season, there will certainly be interest in him across the league, and unless he wants to be relegated to being a backup center, I would not be surprised to see him explore other options this summer. Raul Neto and Thomas Satoransky are also unrestricted free agents. At most, one may be brought back as a rotational point guard, but neither are big priorities as they can be rather easily replaced. But obviously, the biggest part of the Wizards offseason is Bradley Beal's likely free agency. This video will not discuss whether I think Bradley Beal will return to Washington, as it won't act as if I know what Bradley Beal and his camp are thinking, and in turn what decision they will make. But we will discuss what is next for the Wizards based on two scenarios. Does Bradley Beal stay with the Wizards, and what that looks like, or what it looks like in Washington if Bradley Beal leaves. If Bradley Beal returns to Washington, then what's next? Well, we will get to see the duo of Bradley Beal and Kristaps Porzingis together for the first time, which likely means no drastic moves would be made before we get to see what level of success and fit these two would have on the court together. I would expect the Wizards to once again heavily pursue a starting point guard in free agency after cycling through Russell Westbrook and Spencer Dinwiddie over the last few seasons. They now have a glaring need at point guard. They could be interested in players such as Jalen Brunson, Tyus Jones, Colin Sexton, and even to a lesser quality DeLon Wright for more rotational pieces, amongst many others if such players reach the open market. Outside of that, I would expect minimal changes as they give a chance to Brad and Kristaps to find some chemistry and see if this group can replicate some of the success they had in the early parts of the 2021-22 season, and at the very least, we'll try to compete for the play-in tournament in the East. If the worst case scenario happens, and if Bradley Beal leaves the Wizards, it marks the end of an era, and it starts a transition towards the future of Washington Wizards basketball. This team without Bradley Beal is not a playoff team in the East, assuming there are not significant changes. So with that in mind, what moves should we expect following a Bradley Beal departure? Well, 1 to 2 guards would likely be brought in as the Wizards now have the vacancy of Spencer Dinwiddie and Bradley Beal in the backcourt. It is unlikely the Wizards would be able to acquire top of the free agency class guards, given their lack of competitiveness for the immediate future, and it is unlikely they'd be willing to give up young future assets or draft picks to acquire guards in this scenario. But 1 to 2 guards that are at or near starting caliber would certainly be needed. If Thomas Bryant walks, then expect another center to be added to the roster as well. At this point, the Wizards would likely opt for a short-term retool. Hold on to Kristaps Porzingis, given they just acquired him at the trade deadline, continue to let Kuzma flourish in his new role, and further encourage the development of Kispert, Avdia, and others, while using their 2022 and 23 first-round picks to add more young talent that can raise the ceiling of this team. At that point in time, assuming no great success, the Wizards could be in the mix for a star trade if one became available, but obviously, Bradley Beal leaving the summer would not be ideal. Ultimately, the direction and near future of the Wizards is largely dependent on what happens with Bradley Beal. If he resigns, they will try to push for postseason basketball over the next few seasons, but will lack upside to be an elite team. If he leaves, some retooling or a rebuild must take place, and a new era of Washington Wizards basketball begins.